By the way, did I tell you it was like 30 degrees in the middle of April? Ugh. Hey everybody. Boy, I tell you, it cannot decide if we're going to be cold or if we're going to be nice and warm. So I was going through my old videos and I was looking at one that I did on the Bale Wagon, and some of the modifications that I did to this. And I have done a few other modifications, and I thought I would probably explain maybe a little bit more in detail some of the ones that I mentioned in the first video of this Bale Wagon. So I thought I'd just kind of go over with some of the new ones. I don't think that I had them on to begin with. Is I installed a Bale. I installed a full Bale lever, I guess is what you want to call it. So when the bales come down this chute, as they do, and this particular Bale Wagon holds 56 bales, 7 rows of 8 high. When it gets to the last row up there and it pushes that row, I made this lever basically out of a hinge. Old farm gate hinge. Put a piece of steel out here on it, real easy, just drilled a couple holes, and I put a cable to it with a spring on it to pull it back. So when the bales come, this goes like this. Usually it probably only goes to about like that far, but when that happens, when that goes open, this goes from here and goes, when I'm on the tractor, I can see this go like this. It lifts up. Not doing it as well as it does when it's in operation, but this thing will go up. That works really well. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to see. So the next thing I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make me a flag on a hinge. So the flag will come out straight and then come back down. We'll figure that out as we go, but this does work pretty good. Gives you a pretty good idea of when it's full, so you don't have to keep hopping off your tractor, running back to see how many rows you got. So that's one of the modifications I've made since doing my last modifications, number 1. Again, I have a slider wheel. A lot of guys say that they don't like the wheels on the sides of them because they break. If you're gonna put a wheel on the side of this, get a slick wheel. This is a heavy duty. This is actually, I think it says Colson on it. I don't know if I got that, and it's got actually a grease zerk on it too. So I don't know if I got that from Surplus Center here in Lincoln, Nebraska, or TSC. But anyway, this is a solid plastic wheel. So when it's on the ground, if it gets on the ground, it'll slide across the grass and not cause a bind. And this is a pretty good stout little wheel. I've been surprised with it. I've had it on there 2 years and it's done very well. And the reason I have it on there is when I go over a terrace on my place or a bump or something, I do not like your chain. When it's going around, it will bottom out into the grass. A lot of times it'll dig a hole when it goes, or dig a trench, but a lot of times it'll also break them off. So this is a new chain, a pickup chain I just put on last season. The other one was getting pretty crappy, and I think that they have modified and strengthened the chains up in some of these areas a little bit in their welds, and so I did put a new chain on that. Again, like I said, I went to and made a hydraulic picker up on it, got rid of the belt pulley system. The belt was a little bit lacking in you know, belt stretch that's just not as good. I really like the hydraulic pickup. However, with the hydraulic pickup, you do have to have additional 2 hydraulics on your tractor outputs to run that. If you didn't have the hydraulics, you basically can run this whole thing off your PTO. So we changed that around. One of the major things I've done to this that I haven't said anything about yet is because I went to the hydraulic pickup, I now had this big pulley down here free. Well, the big pulley is now in use. I've put a belt on it and a variable pulley to put, or tension pulley, and I made a shaft, which is on top of this pickup. Now this pickup is usually on the ground. You guys seen this, but I cut 2 holes in this, and I put I put a bar across here with some pillow bushings to hold it in place, and I welded a U-bolt on here, and it just clears the deal, the frame of this pickup. And the reason I did that is when the bales come up, they usually flop over, and on this particular bale wagon, there's quite a bit of gap between the time it hits the first table, and here. And sometimes once it flips up and over, it just doesn't quite get here as quick as I like. So this travels around at when I figured this, putting this in, you had to figure the speed of the size of this pulley in direct contact with this pulley, so it slows this down a little bit. You do not want this running, you know, full speed, or it'll just basically just rip your bale up. So it needs to be slow enough to where it grabs the bale and gives it that boost forward. On one of the comments I had here a while back on the first post that I did on this, he's talking about these don't work very well on hills. They do not work very well on hills, I will guarantee him that. But with that little revision right there, it's made a big difference in how it picks up bales even on flat ground. It's just a very continuous process now. Used to have an aluminum pulley on here, and you had a rope that went up to it which lifted this up and down. I've removed all of that. It wasn't working very well. Had to replace a couple things on here and here, as when aluminum and steel get together, they don't get along, so there's a lot of corrosion. So I'm happy with that. I don't need these anymore. I could take those off. Repaired the jack bottom on here. I put a bigger, thicker piece of 2-inch steel and cut this off, because as these get dragged around and accidentally pushed and bumped one way or the other, there's a lot of weight on them, so they start to flare out the bottoms. So I cut that off, put a bigger, thicker piece on the bottom here, so hopefully the wear on the bottom of with the foot there will not wear as bad. So one of the things that also happens when these bales come up the chute, you know, realize that this is laying flat. Have my trailer in here so I can't get it flat. But sometimes the bales, when they come up, the edge of the bale will just scuff this and hold up right here on this table. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to add about 2-3 inches onto this. It'll come right up here above the chain and come out here a little farther. It'll still clear this when it's up. So I'll have this up, I'll take a measurement, and I'll make it to where it clears it just barely, so I get as much as I can. I think another 1 or 2 on this will give that bale something to hit on and continue to slide past. As of right now, it'll kind of get hung up on the edge of that. So that's one of the things that's coming also. This is I primarily use this as a single bale unload, as you guys have seen. So this was something that I made. However, if you go to raise this bed to dump the pile, you will have to take this off because it won't clear your frame here. And I made it with some wing nuts so I can easily unscrew these, take it off. But this is a definite plus. You can see how it just tables square and it pops it out on a single bale, gives it just enough angle to get it past bumping on this. And that has worked very well also. So one of the things that I wanted to share that I didn't share before that's crucial when you're storing these bale wagons is I used to store my second table down. First year I did that, I did that when I ran it the following year. I had a leaky cylinder, which is basically the end of that cylinder right there. That's this great big one that makes that table go up and down. I had a problem with that cylinder leaking. There's actually a vent line on it. I don't know if you can see it, if I can get in there, but it's right there. And as you baled hay, as you put hay on this and that second table went up, that valve would squirt. You'd hear and literally squirt hydraulic fluid all over the table and the ground. So I asked a couple guys, I rebuilt the cylinder and it did it again the second year. So I asked a couple guys at a hydraulic shop that I go to and I like, they suggested that I needed to keep the table in the upright position when it's not being used in the winter, because what happens is, they said, is that when that cylinder, when the table is down, that rod is all inside that cylinder and there's no fluid in the cylinder. So between the moisture that's in the shed and the warming and the colding and whatever, you get little pockets of rust form on the cylinder wall, and that creates a rough pitted area. So then when that slide comes back up, it messes it up and it causes leaks to go by there. So I've done this for the last 2 years, kept the table up in the winter, and right before I lower this, I take WD-40 and I wipe this down, because as you can see, it's got dirt on it. So I wipe it down all the way back to the beginning of the cylinder, and I haven't had a bit of problem since then with that, because when it's in the out position, of course, that cylinder is filled with fluid. So it's a protectant, it's like a lubricant protectant, so it will not, your cylinder won't get pitted inside. That's worked really well also. One of the things I always thought was funny is that when they tell you on this, it's like, you need to check the hydraulic oil, keep the tank full on these, and as you're supposed to measure it with everything down. So this table would have to be down, yet to measure it, you got to stick a stick in the bottom of this, because there is no checking bolt that you can take out and see what your height is. So I figured out that doing this, and if it's helpful to you guys, great. If you have a different way, great. But when the table is up and everything else is in its neutral position, stick a screwdriver all the way down until it touches the bottom, pull it out. You should have 6.5 inches of oil on it when the table's up. I could never figure out why they would have you do that. How you would check it with, I guess you could lower a string, something like that. But I did little things to it. I put new bushings in these to give them a little stronger. For those of you who don't, this is for the single bale offload. I did some work on the single bale offload. We'll have to see if that works. It was having some issues, not bad, but one of the things that is real is it's expensive, but it's a must if you have one of these and it's been sitting out at all, is you need to replace all of the hydraulic lines. And what I did is I took all my lines in, the old ones, and took them into a hydraulic place. Like I said, the guys are really good, called Dakota Hydraulics here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And gave them the lines. I said, make them. and they made them all up for me. And some of the ends are a little odd, so they had to get the ends for me, and so that is a plus because you don't have to worry about rotted lines. One thing you don't want to do is when you're lifting, you know, if you have 8 bales on the second table, each bale weighs 60 pounds. You're close to 500 pounds of weight. You don't want one of those to bust with the pressure. So that's a given too if you're going to have one of these. Something else I did is I put narrow rails in between the big rails. I made these out of like 2-inch channel, and they work okay. To be honest with you, I think probably the best thing would be to put wood across them like I've seen. I just don't like the way the wood looks, because what bales do is that they'll stick out through here and they'll come up here and sometimes get stuck on the edge of your frames and stuff. So wood kind of prevents that. One of the other things that I will be doing sometime in the future, is I think that these are a little lacking, just 2 of them, because you've got, your bales are usually split in the middle. Well, you've got, this is the only thing on a 3.5 on a 3-foot bale or thereabouts. Usually mine are about 36, 38 inches, but so I think it would be nice to actually bring this out on both sides, and it'd be nice to add at least another 1 or 2 rods in the middle coming up, which would be pretty easy to do. Bring them up and match these. You could support them from the you know, you would weld something in between. And granted, you'd have to have a welder to do this, but so that would be something of interest, because I don't think this is enough. However, you could just put a piece of plywood across there, and I think that would probably do it, and do it a lot cheaper and easier. At one time, yes, these have been reinforced. They were reinforced before I got a hold of it. So that may be on. I'll also give you another suggestion. Get you a spare tire and rim. There's places online, I do not know right off the top of my head. I don't know right off the top of my head where I got this, but I got this. This is this tire and rim both came really good shape, fairly new. Rim doesn't even look like it's been used much, but you're gonna want one of those, at least one of those, because I have had this parked out at a field full of hay while I was gone unloading. I came back and one of my tires was flat. Well, it's not real easy to, you can do it, but if you're on dirt trying to jack this up and get it above where you can work on the tire, what I had to do is I had to jack it up, and I took it into town and had them fix the tire, and came back and put it on, and then loaded the wagon. Well, if you have a spare, especially for this, I would recommend it. I think that was about 85 bucks for the rim and the tire. And of course, you know about my about why the pulley is here. That's for my, if you've seen my videos, I hook a rope to here. It comes down, goes through the pulley, goes up to my stack. That's how I control the single bale offload. I can control it all from my stack, shut it off, start it up, drop a load, all that. Those are some of the upgrades. You know, the main thing with these, if you have one, is maintenance. Keep them greased, keep them oiled. Don't oil places that should not be oiled. I learned that the hard way. You'll cause yourself huge problems. Yeah, you just kind of, you know, like everything else, keep care of it. I definitely don't think I would want to store one of these outside. It's kind of like the balers. There's just too many parts on it that weather has conflicts with. I mean, so anyway, guys, I think that's it for now. Guys, like I said, if you like these videos, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up. Welcome to leave comments and suggestions. Please share with your kids and their friends, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.